What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the BREWtally Speaking Podcast, the official podcast of MetalNexus.net, where you can get all your show reviews, concert photos, and the latest going-ons in the rock and metal world. Coming to you solo. Basically, this week has just been a continuation of the shit year I've had so far in 2020. As you heard previously, I had to put my dog down literally on New Year's Day to start the year, which was no fun. And now I'm getting ready to head to Arizona to go to my wife's grandmother's funeral. Dan had his birthday this week, so it's just been really tough trying to get both of us together to do this episode, which is Mark Vollelunga of Nothing More. This interview was done, actually I'm not even going to call it an interview, it was just a fucking chat. This chat was done a couple of months ago when Nothing More was opening for Ghost here in the States, and basically Mark and I just had some beers and we just shot the shit for about an hour. The band wasn't really doing a whole lot, still really aren't. They're basically writing a new record at this point, so always fun to kind of get people at this time when there's not a new record to push, there's not a new song, there's not really anything to push. You just get to talk to the person and have a lot of fun in doing so. And Mark and I had kept in contact since the last time we did the interview with the Nothing More dudes, and just over our mutual love of beer and so forth, and just became a thing where we've stayed in contact and kind of built a little bit of a friendship. And when it came time to do this, he was all about just drinking some beers, and so I thought, what better way to showcase our mutual love and admiration of beer and craft beer than to bring in basically stuff that he can only get here in Michigan. So put together a mix and match pack of beer, and seemingly everything I got him went over pretty well. I was pleasantly surprised, because with someone with such a refined palate that has literally traveled the world drinking all kinds of beers, it gets really hard to know, like, okay, this sounds really good. Is it though? Or is this going to be a thing where this person is like, yeah, that just wasn't that good? But as you'll hear, everything I picked went over pretty well. And then the few beers that we did not drink during this ended up being pretty good hits as well. So I'll go ahead and pat myself on the back for that. But yeah, I also want to say happy birthday to Dan. I know I sent him a message stating such. I know he had to work, and because I said how much cake have you already eaten, and he was like, I have had none because I am at work. So happy birthday to Dan. He'll be back when I get back into town, and hopefully we have a little bit better of a time trying to get together and do these. It's always kind of awkward on my end and just doing this by myself. Because, I think, I enjoy getting to talk to Dan at least once a week and kind of catching up with him and shooting the shit. And I think that's kind of what makes the intros and outros a little bit more fun, is the fact that, I get to bounce things off of him and kind of get his different take on things. So it's a little bit awkward doing some of these when he can't do them. But, I just knew that I have a long day and a long week this upcoming week of doing family stuff, and, we just weren't going to be able to get out a podcast, and I have the ability to at least do this so we can get something out on time. A lot of reflection these last couple of days of just, the importance of family, the importance of taking time to go do things that matter most. I think that's something that as I get older, I definitely realize is a lot more integral of a thing to keep in mind. Passing of my dog, having to put her down, I've had her for 12 and a half years, and I definitely know it's something that a lot of people have probably gone through, but unfortunately, until you go through it yourself, it is something that you can tell yourself that you're prepared for, tell yourself that, when these things happen, this is how I'm going to handle the situation. But the reality is, until you're in that moment, you have no idea how you would even react. So it's just been one of those things where, when my wife was like, hey, got to go to Arizona for this funeral, or are you able to go? And it's like, yeah, I can, we'll figure it out, we'll get it done. And thankfully, work was pretty cool in accommodating my time off request, basically. And on top of that, it was one of those things where I feel kind of bad, because as soon as I get back, I basically, my wife and I go to New Orleans for about a week. So wasn't planning on going to Arizona. I'm hoping to kind of make the best of the situation and get out to somewhere new where I've never been. And maybe the time away, maybe the getting away out of state will kind of help get us out of the funk that we've been in basically since putting down our dog, 2 weeks ago or so. But all that aside, I really enjoyed this conversation with Mark. I think I've said it before that, initially my whole thing was like, I never want any repeat guests. I always want to be moving forward. I don't want to have, conversations with someone I already had, because I just felt like that was like, oh, I couldn't get anyone else, so this is why I have this person on again. And I've actually learned the opposite of that, is I feel like you actually learn more about the person, and there becomes this sense of familiarity that you're just not used to. We've had Phil from All That Remains on a couple of times. We've had Porter from Atreyu on a couple of times. We've had Maddie Mullins on a couple of times. And I'm starting to realize like there just becomes this sense of continuation in the interview or in the chat, and especially if you kind of keep in touch and, and the person didn't mind talking to you in the first place. But it's one of those, Mark has quickly become one of those people that I thoroughly enjoy just bullshitting with almost on a daily basis through, Instagram DMs and so forth. But yeah, this was a lot of fun. I'm going to stop bullshitting, get right to it. This is my chat with Mark Vollelunga of Nothing More, and I will talk to you when we're done. So the thing for me actually about drinking some of these beers, and we're fortunate that New Holland is now here in Grand Rapids and is like 5 minutes from my house. So every month, I think it's every month, they put out a different Dragon's Milk now. So like they've had a Bananas Foster, they've had a mint chocolate chip, which was fucking delicious.
Oh yes.
They had a white Dragon's Milk, which is a trip, because if you're familiar with Dragon's Milk and then you get a white version of it, you're like, that's
the white stout, right?
Sort of, but it sits more. It looks more kind of like in the IPA family.
Okay.
It's like a light caramely brown.
Just as far as the aesthetic goes.
Yeah, and then the flavor though is heavy like the stout, but it's not. So it's very interesting. It's not.
Yeah.
What I would imagine when if you were to tell me like there's a white version of this, I'd be like,
what is it?
How is there a white version of a stout,
dark,
especially like a bourbon barrel stout?
Right.
So
yeah.
That's where, and this is something, and we're going to kind of get into this. This is something that, you have done a lot of traveling over your time of being in this band and Nothing More, and something that it always intrigues me, like when they started doing the whole Beer City USA competition online. Grand Rapids won, like, I think the first 3 or 4 years out of everything. So, like, we were in competition with Portland, Seattle, like, some of the bigger hitters in the beer-making industry. Now, in my time of traveling with my wife, I have kind of come to find, we went to Portland, we went to Seattle, we, did these things. I will say I think Seattle has a better craft cocktail scene than a beer scene. And for me, I also think that something I noticed was out there, and almost in all my travels, it's more of we made a port, or I'm sorry, not a port. We made a porter, we made a stout, we made a IPA, and it's like, but there's nothing special about it.
Right.
And I feel like Michigan as a whole, we go to the nth degree where it's like, no, we're putting crazy ass flavors in there. We do it with our booze too now. Like there's a local distillery, they dry hop finish a gin, and it is amazing. They put Michigan cherries in booze to make a cherry whiskey that has just a very cherry pronounced flavor right off the front profile. And it's just one of those things to me where I feel like a lot of people say they have good beer in their area, and it's not true, honestly. And I know you've spent some time here in Grand Rapids, and you've gone to Founders, and you've probably gone around, and I see you're on Untapped all the time. Yeah. So it's one of those things that this is kind of the fun time to do a chat with somebody, because you don't have a record to promote. You can't really talk. I mean, I'm going to ask you a question just because it correlates to this evening. But it's like you have nothing to do, so we get to do the fun thing of just bullshitting.
Yes.
So after this 2.5, 3 minutes of talking about beer. My guest is Mark Vollelunga, as I remembered from last time.
There you go, yeah.
It's a fun name to pronounce, and you're back. And you were bummed. The whole reason this is happening is because you were kind of bummed we didn't get to keep talking about Founders on your day off from the day before last time.
That's true, yeah. It was Brewtally Speaking, and it was like, oh, brew, it smelled like beer. And then we started talking, and we got a little bit into beer, and I thought the whole thing was going to be about beer. So yes, of course, I am very excited now. Beer is definitely something I'm enthused and excited about, and geez, if you think I'm excited about it, my older brother is just a nutcase. Literally, because he owns our family walnut orchard north of San Francisco, and he's got a lot of time on his hands he's making mead right now. He wants to make beer, but from what I hear, it's like the whole hop thing it's a little political, as far as where they come from and all of that, and so he's in the mead game right now. But nonetheless, you should follow him on Untapped. It's Ralex, Alex, basically. And
that's Reddit. That's how you use those
right.
words.
Yeah. No, you're right. And but he started doing that like, I mean, literally 20 years ago when he was in college, and just that whole Ralex thing. But like he's got like 6,000 check-ins, and maybe almost 5,000 of them are unique, and everything he posts is super unique. So it's just, regardless of being my brother, it's just interesting, and it's just like, where did you get this? Who are you trading with? How? God damn you.
Okay, so something that I've done, talking to, and you may be familiar with this person, you may not, Amigo the Devil.
No, I don't. Via Untapped?
No, he is a musician.
Okay.
Right now, he just finished the Dropkick Hatebreed tour, and is doing a solo run right now. But basically, Danny is his real name, and he went to school for culinary arts and went and then started making beer and so forth, and then became kind of this like folk indie kind of musician, who sort of mixes like his love of like heavy metal and dark imagery and so forth. But we ended up doing a chat, and once I realized, I was like, oh, you're into beer and you're into like culinary, it's like, okay, like let's talk about that and the correlation of your music industry stuff, like finding yourself and making songs and being able to pull from a hybrid of different ideas from your influences and so forth. And it kind of made me thinking about doing this with you. I was kind of going to do the same thing. So right out the gate, you are one of those people that are very much like me, where it's like, I will drink just about anything, and I may not like it, but I can go, I see what they're going for. I'm not big, like I told you, I'm not big on gozas, but maybe I just haven't found the one for me. But that cucumber lime one that you were talking about sounded so good, and I almost picked up a cucumber Himalayan salt or something one, and I was like, all right. But I think in tonight and watching your set again, I think your wide diversity and wide range of beer selections, I think, correlates to you as a musician. Would you agree?
I'm flattered to hear that. That's awesome. No, of course, in life, I think I try to just act as a sponge. It's something that I know Johnny and Dan we've said for a long time, as far as soaking up the good. Because there's good in all genres of music and all aspects of life. Especially growing up in the church, it's like there are great things about Christianity that I'm very thankful for into who I am as a person. And then there are other things into like how the world maybe abuses that, or they get a bad name. And the same applies for every single religion and for every single kind of beer. You know what I mean? It's like I get the... I'm not into the West Coast IPA. I'm going to throw that out there. That's a shame.
Are you more into the New England stuff?
Oh, totally.
Okay.
100%.
Right.
And it's like, I don't know if that's just like I just don't like much bitter things, as far as you saying you aren't really into the Goza.
Right.
And maybe it's a salty, citrusy thing that throws you off. But to me, it's I don't know, it takes away from the flavor. I can appreciate it, though. And I will try it. Just like you said, and it's like I want to try everything because it's life and it's fun and it's to be experienced.
Have you ever come across an example of that, maybe in where maybe the rest of the guys and nothing more jamming out an idea, and you're like, this probably needs like a little bit of this kind of vibe to it, and it's not really it's not my wheelhouse. But like 3/4 of the band are really vibing on something, so like I kind of need to put aside my personal preferences and do what's best for the band and do what's best for everybody else. Is there a song maybe even that's actually been recorded that kind of illustrates that point?
No, that's a great question, and yes, that happens all the time. to where it's like, I don't feel like this is right. Like, I don't like this, but, this is Dan's idea, or this is Ben's idea, And you know what? I'm just going to try because I believe in us. I believe in me and my capabilities of what we can do, and into knowing that it's like the old way of a part. This involves every band, and so many bands get caught up in demoitis and all of that into, no, this doesn't need to change. This is my baby, and it needs to stay the same just like this forever. When you realize that part will always be there, there's nothing wrong with exploring and trying new things, because who knows? Hey, you're a musician. You can be creative. You can figure out something, and guess what? It may be cooler than this old idea. Like way more experimental or interesting or different or whatever. And yeah, it's songs like Funny Little Creatures on our last record that it's like, oh gosh, Johnny had this very strange trancey programming idea that actually isn't even in the song anymore. I know, but
it was the catalyst for the idea.
It was,
right.
And it was cool because it was interesting, but it's like, what the hell do we do with this? And then we tried just, okay, let's learn these strange delay, weird parts and play the same thing as a band, or just, I don't know, see what happens, and it wasn't working. But then it's like we sent it to an outside idea, to Clint Lowry, actually from Sevendust, and he sent me back an idea, and I was like, there it is. That's it. And that was the catalyst. That it's like it opened this idea, and at the same time then it's like from there we still had the programming idea for the verses, and they ended up writing themselves out, and I wrote the verses mainly on the lyric of the "It's funny how," because it was like funny little creatures and trying to tie in the theme of it being funny. And I know I'm talking fast and sort of rambling, but and into a process of a whole song, which even though in 4 minutes, it's like, man, sometimes songs can take just years. And it just, you need that idea for it to make sense and for it to come to fruition, for everybody to be happy and believe in it finally, be on the same page.
Speaking to that, sorry, my wife is texting me.
No, dude, that's the best reason you can ever have.
My wife just goes, and I've said this to one of her best friends at a different show. Actually, I think it was Sevendust. She goes, pretty sure ghosts are trying to get people off with their seats vibrating. For real. Coffin emoji.
Dude, that's awesome. Oh, wow. I love it.
So, you heard it here first. Ghost will get your ladies off. So, if you're into rock and roll as a man and your ladies like to the deep sounds of vibrations, 3 guitar players and a bass player and some synths and all that will probably do it for you.
That's true. I mean, they talk about tickling taints, throughout the set, wobbling asses.
They're foreign, so they definitely are into butthole pleasures.
Oh, jeez. All right.
Kind of actually, speaking to, Clint Lowry, I was going to say right off the gate, like that dude, him and Sevendust, I think, are the masters of off-time signature things and just abstract ways to approach. Like, if I were to give you, like, a song like Enemy,
nice.
Like, yeah. from the just get of listening to it, you'd probably be like, there's no way that's a single. But it's arguably one of their biggest singles, but it's aggressive, it's off time, so a lot of people who aren't used to like the weird time signatures and the stops and the stop starts and the push and pulls of everything that's happening. But it's interesting to see a band like that have the success that they do. And I think it was funny because like in watching you tonight, there was some stuff you guys were doing. I was like, I think you're challenging Ghost fans, because Ghost is a rather, and it's nothing against them, but like Ghost is a rather, for lack of a better term, a 4 on the floor kind of like rock band, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's what makes rock music great. Just a simple, great, straight groove, a straight beat that you can follow throughout the whole thing. And the fact that it takes, I think I counted 2 keyboard players, 3 guitar players, and a bass player, and the drummer. So you got like 6-7 people recreating all these sounds from a record to put it out live. But there was something in what I think you guys are doing where I think you're challenging fans, potentially that don't know you, to really push the boundaries of what they think either heavy music is or lighter music, because depending on some of the shows that you're on, you might be the lighter band or you might be the heaviest band.
Totally
and
true.
I think that's interesting to me, that you don't fit, you're not a perfect right down the middle, you're either or, for depending on the crowd you're playing with. And this is a very interesting show, because like I was talking with the Wage War guys at Sonic Temple earlier this year, and I was like,
you know, how does it feel to play, like, you're kicking off the stage that, like, Killswitch is on, and Meshuggah's on, and, you know, a lot of these bands, and they're not in your wheelhouse necessarily, like, a lot of those people are older, and you're a younger band, but, like, you're probably gonna, like, play to these people who are like, I'm at a festival, fuck it, I'm gonna check you out. And they might become fans of you because you offer something that's in between everything that they're into. And I definitely think, like, you're in a unique position because this tour is at a very odd time in the album cycle. Like, you have nothing to push, so honestly, you can do whatever you want on this for a set. So I feel like, based on the set I saw tonight, I was like, this is a band that's trying to just put it all out there, like, every broad stroke of what you are as a band you put out tonight to try to get and paint a picture for the Ghost fans that are probably the predominant fans at these shows, of being like, yo, this is what we're all about. If you dig it, cool. If not, well, guess we're not for you. And that's okay.
That is okay, yeah. You're right, but just like you're saying, it's like that's something that I feel that we learned from bands like Led Zeppelin and like from I don't know if I even want to get into that.
Sorry, last time you and I talked, apparently
it
got you in probably some trouble a little bit. Sorry about that.
No worries at all. They have plenty of yeah, get what's coming to them.
Anyway.
Yeah. And bands like Incubus, who's like a huge inspiration of ours. That it's like they can be a rock band, a tech metal band, a funk band, a singer-songwriter band, and really, like I was saying before, like be sponges, absorbing the good about all things, and they're on their own musical journey. And that's something that we took in. I know it was funny when our interview came out, and the headline of it, I was like, dude, but I love Mike Einziger. And it's like, it sounds like I'm bashing Incubus. And obviously you click on the link and you read into it more.
It's the full quote, which is not what the headline is, which kind of sucks, but regardless.
Right. That's okay. It's no worries, because I have nothing to hide, and I'm sure they've heard it before, and it may or may not be true. I don't know Dirk. I don't know the guys at all, so I don't really know what happened, and I don't know Ben Kinney either, and he's an amazing musician. But my point being being sponges about things and just being open to all good things in music, and then putting your own spin on it and creating your own mixture to put out into the world, that if regardless of who we play in front of Ghost fans, in front of, you know, hardcore Killswitch fans, metal fans, thrash fans, and then bands like, you know, if we play in front of Blue October, you know, or like really poppy stuff. It's like I feel like we can cater our set to kind of more meld or be able to appeal to certain fans. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is good is good. A good song is a good damn song. And it doesn't matter what genre it is. It's just good. It just feels good, the whole ride of it. From the start to the finish, the lyrics, the sounds, the tones, the journey, and that's really important, and that's what we stand by whenever we write any song, any and every one.
Speaking of the journey, your journey today from Tennessee had some issues, and what was interesting about it to me, and I was actually talking to your TM before you showed up, and I was surprised in light of the issues you had getting here late. For those who don't know, so you guys were in Tennessee recording the follow-up record at this point, and you ended up having bus problems, and it cost you getting here when you should have been for normal load-in, sound check, all that kind of stuff. And I kind of leaned over to my wife and I was like, they sound really good considering this is probably a throw-and-go show for them. And for those who may not know what a throw-and-go means, it literally means like you're throwing your shit on the stage and you're going. And Ryan, your TM, was like, actually, yeah, this is probably one of the better shows we've done the whole tour so far. And I think that speaks to, the professionalism of your guys.
Yeah.
The fact that you're able to be behind the 8-ball at this point, of getting here late and doing all that kind of stuff. And the fact that you guys are able, pro as fuck as well, and just able to set up run through your set, whatever is good, and just be happy with whatever the results are, because at the end of the day, it's about the energy and the vibe of what you're putting out. And, I mean, like we keep kind of having re-said, I mean, this is the fun part of a tour cycle. You have nothing, you don't need to push a single, you don't need to push a record. You're just in this fun gray area where it's like, yeah, we're on a great tour, and we just want to have fun. So, yeah, so we showed up late. Who cares? And I definitely felt like there was a little bit of that, like, kind of punk rock attitude going on throughout the whole night, to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it is that aspect in a tour, and I think you'll see that with every band. At this, like, 3-week point, I think right now we're at maybe 4 to 5 week point, going on 5, I think, of the tour, to where there is a laissez-faire attitude of, like, everybody knows what they're doing. They know what their job is. We know what the set is. Like, we feel every song going into the next song. And there's something to be said about that. Of the punk rock, yeah, this is it. It's the confidence factor of that you want to see from a band. Yeah. You know what I mean? From song to song, and every transition being solid, being whatever it is. And to go back to your point about the crew, and it's like, we're stoked about every single guy we have right now, and we believe in building this family. Granted, things happen, and tours happen, and money happens, to where it's like, oh, this guy's got to take that tour, because they pay more money or whatever it is. And we understand that. Or this guy's having a baby, and we understand that for sure. Nobody does more than me, and they got to do what's right for their family. So it's I'm stoked that, and we're super proud of our crew, that we can show up 2 hours, less than 2 hours before we play, unload everything that we need to, and get on stage. No sound check, everything's just line check, and it's like, oh geez, I hope it sounds good. And like Ryan said, it's like everything came out, and it was like, okay.
Your crew had time to eat dinner.
Yeah. Right. Somehow it's like, okay, this is the best show of the tour. How? Okay, I don't know. I talked to our lighting guy, Blaine, and he was like, yeah, man, I even had time to, like, program some new things, and, like, I had fun with some strobes. It's like, all right, tight.
Something that's interesting about Ghost to me is it feels like... I'm sorry, I'm going to open another beer.
Yeah, let's do this.
And I know technically I'm over my time limit already.
Dude,
so.
I don't want to stop.
Okay.
Let's...
I will need to text my wife, because she'll probably be like, are you still going?
Okay, got it. That's what she said. All right, let's do Nutter Your Business peanut
butter.
You
ever had this?
No, I'm very
Grand
excited.
Armory. Are you a fan of, like, peanut butter stouts?
Oh yeah, are you kidding me? Of course.
This is one of my favorite. Although technically we have a PB and Jelly, which is an ale. So we have two peanut butter guys.
Okay. I had one recently, which you may have seen from Untapped. That was from the brewery, their PB and J stout.
Yes,
which was really good.
These guys have a peanut butter and chocolate ripple.
Oh God,
stout. And I almost got that, but I was like, there's too much peanut butter already in my selection.
You can never have too much peanut butter.
I love peanut butter. So since I have to kind of kill a little bit of time while you pour these beers, something that's interesting to me, and something I just, it's funny because I remember I got glimpses of remembering when you guys toured with Wilson. My buddies in Wilson, and you guys played the Loft, and you guys are still kind of a...
Cheers.
Here we go. Let's get the first impressions. I've had this beer so many times, and it is still one of my favorite peanut butter beers ever.
It's good. It's good.
Like, the peanut butter flavor is, like, pronounced on the forefront. It's got a really mellow, like, extra peanut buttery stout flavor on the end.
Yeah.
Like, it's definitely
it is nice... what it says it is.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
But, like, a lot of people are like, oh, peanut butter, that's such a weird flavor. But it's like peanut butter, and what this beer does really well is it has the two characteristics of peanut butter, the peanut butter flavor profile. Yeah. So, like, it's nice and kind of sweet in the beginning, and then you kind of get more of the nutty flavor as it's going with the stout flavor. Right. And to me, like, that's what I really love about that beer, is that it's got two different flavor profiles that you're not used to seeing in a peanut butter beer.
Yeah. No, I fully agree. I was thinking it's like it's everything you want to have from like a nut brown ale.
Yes.
That it's like because it doesn't have any of the peanut butter.
No.
It's like there's so much more flavor and just goodness that happens in the beer. This is really good. Thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you for doing this. I've been wanting to do this with a couple of people, like Brock Lindow from 36 Crazy Fists. He has a show from in Alaska, a radio show where they drink beers locally and all that kind of stuff. And I wanted to do kind of this thing, like where I just bring in beers and we drink beers and we talk about them for a minute and then we talk about whatever.
That's awesome. This is my favorite thing to do at home.
Dude,
as
I've been seeing your Untapped, I'm like, I don't know that the podcast is going to be like revolutionary in the fact of like the information I get out of you, but at the same time I'm like, I'm going to have a blast. I know you're going to have a blast because it's about things that we like, and I'll try my best to pander to the Nothing More fans that may listen to this and be like, okay, it's Mark from Nothing More, so let's talk about Nothing More stuff.
But to be reminded, good is good.
Yes.
So almost like it.
Although you're reminding me because of the season we're in, I'm reminded of the original. I'm reminded of the original. Fuck! They just did a new remake of it. Stephen King book.
It.
No, not it. You're right though. You're right with it. But they made two of them. And people who are listening to this are like, it's this, and I'm gonna edit it out so no one will know.
Don't edit it out.
Nah, okay. Had Edward Furlong in the second one. Pet Sematary. Sometimes dead is better.
Okay. I'm
reminded of that.
I did not see that movie, so
You didn't see the original?
No.
It had Herman Munster in it as the next door neighbor.
It's hard, man. As you get older, it's like
What do you mean older? That movie came out in like the late 80s, early 90s when we were like young bucks.
That's what I mean. As you get older, it's like I have seen the movie. I know I have.
Okay. All right. I thought you were saying you haven't seen it.
No. But I can't remember it because it's been so long, which is terrible, and hate me for it or whatever.
That's a October song. You're good.
Yeah, it's a great song. Yeah, Justin and man,
Just here.
Ryan and his son Fade, which is so awesome. He played on our song Fade In Fade Out.
Oh,
And his son's name is Fade. He did all the strings on it, which is so awesome and such a strange Easter egg. I know I'm segueing back into the band or whatever, but it's like I love that band.
Yeah, all right, here's a fun question.
Yes,
I'm going to ask
hit me.
And it's only because of the guitar that you just recently got, and it correlates back to the interview we did before. So you finally got an 8-string.
Oh.
And you guys are recording a new record. How much has having an 8-string really inspired you to just start writing stuff? Because I feel like when you get it, like the floodgates are just going to open with ideas because it's an extra string and it will create extra rhythms. It'll create, especially against like a solid bass player like you got, that it's like, oh man, like I can kind of go low end and let you kind of do a 2-less thing, like where I'm playing more of the rhythm and letting, because that's what Tool does. Like that's the thing. Like I realized as I became, and I suck at guitar, but like as someone who pays attention to a lot of things, the thing that's interesting about Tool is Tool does the opposite of what a normal rock band does. Your guitar player is your rhythm, and your bass player is your lead player, and he is the one that kind of dictates where the song is going, along with an amazing drummer like Dana Carey, and just. But all that aside. I noticed there's a little bit of that with you guys, like where you guys will trade off who's lead and who's rhythm and who's doing what. So I feel like with you getting an 8-string, I'm like, oh my god, this probably opens just tremendous ideas and opportunities for what the band can do at this point now.
Oh, dude, you're right. I am very excited about it. I haven't had the chance to jam with the rest of the guys, just in a jam room format with the 8-string. I have had the chance to record a couple ideas, and our process has typically been I record something, I go ahead and just do a whole song most of the time just because it feels right, and sometimes it's like, okay, that part's awesome, that part's cool, the rest of it sucks, or whatever it is. That's all right. It happens, you know what I mean? And who's to say you get anything right the first time? Ben Folds, The Luckiest, one of my favorite songs ever. But it's I am excited for what it's going to create and going to do. In the same way that it's like that sounds like more as far as more strings. It's like we have a couple songs that are just ukulele, which is 4 strings,
Right.
half strings. And I'm stoked at it's an electric ukulele actually. So I plugged it into the Axe Effects, and it's like I'm excited about, like, oh man, let's see what a ukulele can do with effects and see what happens, And there's some cool stuff that's going on. Very Dead Letter Circus, Circus 5, Mars Volta kind of like, which is different for us.
I think those are pushing boundaries of melody, extremities, and everything and anything in between. With those 3 bands that you mentioned, honestly.
And that's the goal right there. It's like, let's do things we haven't done before, but bring everything we are into it.
You're at an interesting point, I think. I don't think this is a make or break record for you guys. I think you're beyond that at this point. But I do think, in light of the bar being raised every time, I think you're at an interesting point. And sorry to bring up the Incubus reference again,
It's okay,
but
dude, I love Incubus.
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head last time, but I think it's more apropos for right now. You're at that point now where your fans expect a certain thing, and you can either continue to do that thing that appeases fans, which is interesting because fans either love you for the risks you take, but then will hate you for the risks you take because it's not the risk that they expected you to take. So you're in this really interesting bubble to me where I feel like you're either going to go just so far of left field of where people think you're going to go, and that has me excited, to where you're going to go into, and this may not be a reference that your fans may understand, but actually I'll make it a reference that your fans will understand, potentially. So it might be Deftones self-titled. You're following up White Pony with self-titled, and I love self-titled. I think it took what White Pony did as far as the extremities of aggressiveness mixed with the ambiance of electronics and a lot of the things that Chino and Frank and everybody were kind of incorporating and jamming in a space together. And I think it pushed it to its limits at that point, especially with the producer. And I think you have a great full-on record of all of those things that the band had to offer at that time. Now, a lot of fans were like, this record sucks, Saturday Night Wrist sucks. By the time you get to Diamond Eyes, everyone's like, there it is, we're back again. And to me, I feel like you're at that crux right now where I feel like you could put out a self-titled Deftones kind of style record where I would be super stoked, because I'm like, oh man, this is like everything I've loved that you've done before, but to the next level. And maybe it's going to take your fans a couple years to kind of to get there and understand. So how hard is it to be writing something and be stoked on something and know that potentially you're a little bit ahead of your fans at this point?
I mean, that's a great question, and it's something as an artist you always think about, and it's like I can think about bands like Thrice, and I've been, they're probably my favorite band, and I've been let down by some records, just being honest, and same with Incubus too, one of my favorite bands. I've been let down by some records. That doesn't mean I hate every single song and only like 2 songs or something. It's confusing because it's like, it's seeing a movie and it's like, well, I was expected to, have it be a follow-up to this and be everything I wanted that was so good from The Dark Knight, The Dark Knight Rises. And it was like, everybody can probably agree that it's like, that was pretty much a flop. It was like, there were a lot of good things, but they just crammed everything into here because they had to, for budget, for this. Yeah, they had to wrap it up. And not that that's the same for a band. And
no, it totally is, though, because I think the thing that a lot of people don't understand, and I'm talking just from listening to a lot of interviews, having friends who tour, who have been through this, and so on and so forth. So forgive the pseudo-arrogance of cutting you off, but I think the thing is you're at a point in your career where you're expected to put out product that will sell. You have label people telling you, and it may not be the people who believed in you and signed you at first, but you might have people coming to you and go, we don't hear the single. We don't hear the song we're going to push to Octane. We don't hear the festival song that's going to have everyone pumping their fists. We need another Jenny. We need another This Is the Time. And that's kind of the thing that is interesting about this point of talking to you, and especially where you are in your career, is that I feel like you guys are at a point where you've done so much doing things on your own, but now you have expectations put on you at this point, And I just always wonder, like, how much of that seeps into the writing process.
Yeah. Really, I welcome the challenge, and I don't mean that in an arrogant way that I know that I'm always going to deliver. We're always going to deliver as a band, but more in a sense of like I know what we are. We took our risks on our first few records before we even got signed. And technically we got signed on like our 5th record. And we've been a band for a long ass time. Yeah, we were kids, but that's important because every band goes through an experimental phase. If you can dig up some old stuff, it's like, what was this band thinking? You know, we went through the let's play as many notes as we can, you know, and let's be a funk band because it's like Dan joined the band and it was like, oh yeah, bass, groove, oh hell yeah. And then we went through this phase of like, are we a funk band, a funk party band? Because that gets people to come to shows and just be entertaining. Or are we a heartfelt, passionate band, you know, that's about the lyrics? Because we love good songs, you know, and we're really at a standstill. This is crazy, but it was like 2007. We were at a standstill where it was like, is Dan going to be the singer or is Johnny going to be the singer?
Because he was drumming.
Yeah, and well, Dan was playing bass, and it was like if we were gonna be a party band and more in the vein of Cake, because Cake's awesome, and it's like, oh man, nobody can ever be sad or bummed when you put on a Cake song. It just feels so good. They're such a great band, and it's fun, and it's like that gets people to come to shows. It's party, it's vibe. But at the end of the day, in our hearts, it's like but it's like it's music. It's what moves us. It's why we want to do this. We wanted to do the passionate, progressive rock thing, you know? And, gosh, I go down tangents. I'm sorry.
No, that's all podcast.
Yeah, yay, I'm glad this is not an interview. I'm bad at interviews because I end up at this point right now and I forget what the question was. The challenge. Basically, it's like, oh, are you going to deliver? You know, are you going to lose fans? It's a risk to say that basically, you know, a good song is a good song. Like regardless, it's like even if it's not something that it's somebody would expect, they can still, oh, that was still good. And as long as you do that, it doesn't matter. So I feel like we don't rest until we get the chills, until the hair stands up on the back of our necks. And it's like, yes, that's it. We got the lyric, we have the riff, we have whatever it is, and we are what we are. Like, you can feel that this is a Nothing More tune. And we're not going to release it or be done with it until it's that.
All right. So in the spirit of what we're doing right now, which is having beers and having a conversation, and we're on your bus, which, I mean, you hear all the stories of, you know, late nights, jamming, insert whatever here. What is the one song when you're, I'm not going to say drunk, but at good, like, cruising altitude where you've had a couple, you're in that zone of, like, feeling good? What is that song that is your go-to song to, like, just really, like, keep the mood going and fire everybody up and be like, all right, here's the fucking party, we're going? What is that song for you?
That's good. In the past, it's always been Toto Africa. Always. Now... honestly, we're going through an ear rape phase, which sucks. And it is really funny. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
what?
Ear rape.
Nope.
Okay, so basically, there are a lot of songs on YouTube and whatnot that are, you know, normal songs. Like it might be Toto Africa, it might be some Limp Bizkit, it might be whatever it is. But basically, it goes about 10 to 20 seconds into the song, and then it just like somebody turned it up to 13 or whatever. It's just distorted, like it's blowing out your speakers, and it's funny, and that's sort of what's happening. So it's like Sweet Home Alabama, and it's like they get to I don't know, the chorus, like right when Sweet Home Alabama hits, and it's like if you can imagine my sound effects being distorted and just clipping everything, and everybody just laughs. and because it's a trick.
Yeah.
It's a prank,
Yeah.
and it's funny. That's sort of the jam right now.
So the jam for you then is what again?
Ear rape.
But I'm saying, like, what is the song again? Because you said it was. You mentioned a couple of different songs, but what is the go-to song right now for all of you guys?
Oh gosh, I mean we're all over the place. I'm gonna pull up my phone. It's like what I'm excited about right now is really, I mean, the new Tool record's great.
Still really have not listened to it.
Yeah, and that's okay.
Like, I'm just like 13 years. I got time to
Dude,
steady myself into it.
You got
If
another
you're gonna make me wait 13
before
years,
another one, right?
And I'm gonna be honest, I was not impressed with 10,000 Steps personally.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that you follow Lateralis up with that was kind of a little bit of a bummer in my opinion. It felt like Lateralis B-sides to me.
Damn.
I'm just calling.
I disagree. I
right.
really loved it. Vicarious is an awesome song. It's,
I mean, it had hits. Like,
dude,
I'm
the lyrics, like you read through those lyrics, it's reality TV. It's just like making fun of society, like Maynard does.
I didn't find
It's
the
great.
anal sex song that is on every
Oh
Maynard record.
gosh, the anal sex song.
Hey,
That's
he's
funny.
got one of every song. Every album he does, there's one.
That's funny. Really? It's like okay, Stinkfist.
Stinkfist.
I'm gonna call you out.
On Merde
What's
Noms,
next?
I think it was.
No, that's Perfect Circle.
Yep. But he said he puts them on every single album he does.
Really?
That's what he said in an interview
That's
right before I think Lateralis. I think I remember there being something he was like, I make
Yeah.
one song about anal sex on every
I
album.
mean, he's a comedian, so that's what he does, and there's funny shit that happens for sure with all bands and little traditions or silly things that tend to stick. You know, I've actually watched Rocket Man, and
I haven't seen it, but I've been noticing listening to, because like we had a no cell phones on the production floor thing at my job now, and so I sneak my phone and I put it into a thing and I listen to my podcast and so forth. But a lot of times when my headphones die and I turn on the radio, and the only station that really comes in is like 80s, 90s, and today top 40 kind of radio, but they have like the lunch where it's like 80s and 70s or whatever, and they've been playing a lot of Elton John, but they've been playing a lot of the original version of there's a song from Marilyn Monroe, then it became
Candle in the Wind.
Yes, so they had the original version of Candle in the Wind, and you know, some other stuff like Benny and the Jets and all that kind of stuff, and I'm just like, man, this guy's got like so many hits that span so many different genres and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, like, I have a Freddie Mercury tattoo, and a lot of people, it sucks now that movie's out. People are like, oh, because of the movie. It's
Right.
like, no, I've had this for like
Ever.
way before that, but okay. But it is a stark reminder that, very much like Queen, that Elton John was really good at transcending genres. Like, I mean, everything was based around a guitar or a piano line, basically, but he had songs that, if you were a fan of those, like, if I were to be like, oh, here's a guy who plays piano and he writes pop songs, you'd be like, nah, I'm good. But, like, then I play you Benny and the Jets, and you're like, God damn you. Dun,
Right.
dun, 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 dun.
That's great.
And then it's like, all right, ascending, descending, major, minor, all that kind of stuff. And you're like, I mean, all the pop formulas are there. And then how can you not be into, you know, Benny and the Jets? And then again, going over that simple rhythm. I mean, it's just, that's what classic rock is. It's the most simple of rhythms and structures and so forth that just get you to.
Yeah. Well, and that's what we've lost, I think, in our generation now, are the rock bands that are willing / have the balls to take risks in a lyrical sense. Well, and like artistic sense too. That's true. And to like, okay, the arrangement can be off or whatever it is, and it just follow the story. Like, say something. Let me believe in the characters that you're talking about, and let me imagine and bring me into your world. Like Rocket Man, like Benny and the Jets, like Ben Folds, who's fucking awesome.
Rock in the Suburbs. Even though that's not his like best song, but
no,
song.
it's totally not. Whatever, and ever, amen.
Depressing,
I mean,
I will say that.
Oh yeah, but it's like
so
you
great, though.
follow him in the story, and it's like, surely it's like, I have kind of been through something similar than that, or to that, and it's.
Hold on, you can't say that and talk about it a few different times. Are you talking about Brick?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right. Just want to make sure that we were following along the breadcrumb trail that you're leaving. Okay,
Nice.
continue.
Yeah, and the melody is great, but it's like the story, and he has these characters, these people, these names that he drops to make you wonder, who's Fred Jones? It's like this guy that's worked at the paper for 25 years. Nobody knows his name. It's super sad in a not comedic Office Space way, like Milton. But it's like, and he ends up working in the basement. It's just like, all right, that's it. There's my 25 years. You know, one of my favorite lyrics, which is one of Johnny's too. It's like, life's a runaway train. You know, you get off. This is so bad. Said it's my favorite lyric and I can't remember it.
It's always reminded me, and I'll give you a little bit of time to think of it.
Okay.
It's always reminded me of Alexis on Fire's Boiled Frogs. And if you're familiar with that song, Dallas Green, when he did City and Color, did an acoustic version of it. And it's more somber and morose version of the song. But it's basically about a person who just kind of pushes papers and just goes through life, like, just doing what's expected of him. And, like, there's a line in it that I always remember where it's like, old man sits at his desk 1 year from retirement. He's up for review, not quite sure what to do.
Yeah.
Each year, each passing year, the workload grows. Yeah. And then it's like you listen to the lyrics, and it's like when you hear the City and Color version of it, which is stripped down to an acoustic guitar, you're like, "Fuck, this is so depressing, and this is a lot of people's lives." And I think that's the interesting thing sometimes about listening to music, especially when you've been drinking. Sometimes your go-to party anthems are so depressing and morose, and you just don't realize because they're constructed in such great pop ways. I mean, like, forever, my wife will never listen to Rocket Man because of watching what is it?
Family Guy?
No. Watching Nip Tuck. And in the first season of the show, a character passes away, and they play Rocket Man where she puts a bag over her head. And I was the asshole at the time because I will think of other counter melodies and stupid lyrics of what I'm watching. I'm like, plastic bag going over my head, killing myself.
Yeah.
Like, just shit like that. And she's like, I will never listen to that song ever again because of that scene.
It ruined it. Right.
No, for sure. But it's partially my fault. But it's like, you listen to Rocket Man and you're like, fuck, this is about isolation and being alone and, like, things that are not happy and all that, and you're like, but he made it do such a thing that it's like you can't help but sing along to it, and you're like another great song, Faithfully by Journey. That is a sad fucking song about being gone from the ones you love by being on the road because you're in a touring band. But when it gets to that, like, you're just like, takes me to that place, put the fucking lighters out in a bar, slam my drinks with somebody.
Right.
Makes you feel good.
Right.
But it's a morose song.
Yeah, that's the irony of it, for sure. That it's like something so, the lyrics be dark, but the mood be happy, and you accomplish that goal, which is kind of cool sometimes, and I feel like we've done in some cases nowhere near successfully as any of these artists that we're creating.
Areas, for sure, I think.
But that's like, sometimes you can get that with a major chord progression and inserting dark and not necessarily brooding, but just like emotional emo lyrics, just really heart. They tug on the heartstrings for sure, and it's you should watch Rocket Man. Getting back to the point, it's. I think the actors are cool. I think something most people don't know about that story or didn't know until now. I think I watched like a behind the music or something. Was that like for his whole career, Elton John had his lyrical partner who wrote all of the lyrics, and that was his job. And Elton John just wrote the music and the melodies, and it's like that's so important. It's like Barry, I think is his name. I feel bad for not being certain about it, but it's crucial because that's the whole idea of synergy and what it is to be in a band in general, of to have when two or more are gathered, pounds Dan can lift 200-300 pounds, but together we can lift 800 or 1,000 pounds. It's that special force that happens that it's like together we can create something that's bigger than ourselves, and that's what's so special. And I think I feel like, I like Barry and Elton created, which his name's not even Elton, but yeah, totes. Are we done?
Nope. So apparently I fucked up, and I don't know what happened, but my microphone stopped working. So I will just say this. I think this is a good place to end, just in light of this, and this will be for you and I now. And thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Very much looking forward to the record you have, especially with the 8-string. I'm very excited to see what you and Dan and Johnny and everyone comes up with, because I think some interesting polyrhythms are probably going to be in store for us. And I'm interested to see if you create the next good drinking anthem for everybody.
Damn.
So, looking forward to seeing you guys when this new record comes out. We'll have to do another one of these. And thank you so much for taking the time.
Dude, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. This is what I love to do. I mean, when I'm at home, I share beers, good beers, mind you, with friends, and good conversation happens. In vino veritas.
And thank you very much, and that's this conversation.
So that was my conversation with Mark Vollelunga of Nothing More. That was fun. I mean, I had some questions written down, but, I just think sometimes, this show has kind of caught some shit for the fact that, we are a drinking podcast or have drinking in or associated with the podcast in any way, shape, or form. And sometimes, like as you heard me say with Tommy Victor, it's like we are more than that. It is more about being, just open and honest in the conversation you're having with each other and so forth. And I think we do that a lot as well. Conversations like this where I just, Mark and I are literally sitting in the back of the bus. We're just having some beers. We're shooting the shit. I did have some questions in mind, but it was kind of more freeform. Like I just kind of, wherever he was his answers were going, I just kind of wanted to keep it going that way, because that's the kind of thing that would happen if you were having beers with a friend, or just in general, is you would have a conversation and you wouldn't be trying to steer it in any one direction. So, is what it is. It did kind of end a little bit abruptly. I was, as you heard in the very beginning, because I'm not really editing this conversation at all. I pretty much kept it as is, because I think it adds more to that in the moment kind of feel, as opposed to it being edited down to where it feels a little more, the life is kind of taken out of it. But as you heard, Mark and I's wives were both texting us, because, he had to text her and was like, hey, I'm done with the show, and so on and so forth. And my wife was sitting in the arena watching Ghost. And funny enough, unbeknownst to me, which I'll bring it up now, so I know, we had talked about on an episode previously about how I went to Vegas randomly and surprised my wife. So this interview is actually what spurned all of that, is that while I was on the bus talking to Mark, my wife was sitting in the arena drinking, watching Ghost, and a friend of ours was going to Las Regis out in Las Vegas, and she was like, well, fuck it, I'm just going to go because, whatever. So she found flights and decided to go last minute. And then, I get a text when I when I got done with Mark that was like, so I'm going to Vegas in like 2 days to go to Las Regis with to go meet up with our friends. And I was like, oh, well, son of a bitch. I guess this is what happens when I'm doing a podcast. So I kind of had forgotten all about that until I was thinking about this night in retrospect. But yeah, this was basically the impetus of why my wife and I ended up going out to Las Vegas so randomly, like less than 3 or 4 days notice of when we went. All because I was talking to Mark and left her alone. She said, she goes, this is what happens when you leave me alone and I've had some drinks. I book a flight. So all that aside, Mark was super great. Love talking to the dude. If you aren't familiar with Nothing More, highly recommend going to see them. They put on a really great, energetic live show. It was interesting to see the contrast between Nothing More show, which didn't really rely on a lot of stage things other than their one, and I forget what it's called, but we talked about it on the last chat with the Nothing More guys. Basically, this like, it almost looks like a scorpion tail or something like that, where their singer Johnny gets in it, and he controls all these sounds and so forth, and it goes up and down and moves around, and that's kind of the only thing that they have that is production on the stage. They got lights and they got a backdrop, but it was so interesting to just basically see the contrast between something that was so bare bones and more kind of about being engrossed in the music to then seeing this just really elaborate stage show for Ghosts. I mean, they had, catwalks going behind the drummers. Everyone had platforms they were on and so forth. Everyone was dressed in, tuxedos, and it was more about a visual thing to go along with the show. And just as a whole, it was very interesting to see kind of the stark contrast between the two bands. And I think it really kind of worked in each band's favor, because you get a little bit of something more rock and roll and more raw, and then you get something more polished and bigger, and kind of is the whole point of going to an arena show, where you see the headlining band kind of putting the money back into their production. Admittedly not a big Ghost fan, but the few songs I saw before going off to go talk to Mark, I actually enjoyed how it sounded. Looked really great, and again, thanks to Mark and the Nothing More camp for getting my wife and all squared away to go see that. And so to wrap everything up, Nothing More currently writing right now, per their socials. It looks like there's quite a handful of songs they're working on. I don't know to what level of completion those songs are at, but very interested to see how this new record sounds. Mark, obviously, as we alluded to, got an 8-string, so we'll see if any of the newer tunings or whatever he's playing around with on that end up making it onto the record. I would assume they would. So very much looking forward to seeing what the next progression for Nothing More is heading into this new album. If you would like to keep up with Nothing More, though, Facebook at Nothing More, Instagram at Nothing More Music, and Twitter at Nothing More Rock. And if you would like to keep up with Mark and see all the beers that he is drinking and the adventures he is on, you can follow him simply enough at Mark Vollelunga on Twitter and Instagram. If you don't know how to spell his name, just look at your screen and you'll find it. It'll also be in the show notes, so there's that as well. If you would like to keep up with Metal Nexus, you can find them simply enough at metalnexus.net, Facebook at Metal Nexus, Instagram at metal.nexus, Twitter at metal_nexus. And this is typically where I throw it over to Dan, so I will do my best to tell you where Dan can be found on the internet. You can find him on Facebook at his name, Daniel Terry. Clever, he knows. He doesn't have an Instagram page, but you can follow him over at the Discography Discussion page. I'm sure they would appreciate the follow over there. Actually, surprisingly, I don't know how the fuck they do it. They seem to get, a lot of the band's attentions with what they post, and a lot of the times when we do that for ours, not so much. So I don't know what the secret sauce is over there at Discography Discussion, but they've got it apparently. And Twitter, you can find him at Discuss Metal Dan. If you haven't checked out Discography Discussion for whatever reason, I was just on one of their most recent shows, episode 150, covering Every Time I Die. So go on over there, check it out. I think you'll enjoy what they do. As I have said several times, I use their podcast sometimes as my basis for how fans of bands feel when they have to listen to everything and maybe not just the 3 or 4 records they may like from a band. So head over to Discography Discussion. You can email them at danandjoeshow@gmail.com. Let them know I sent you. I think it's kind of redundant because a lot of people come from here over there and over there to here, so whatever. But send Dan some happy birthday stuff. Give Joe shit for saying D-gent instead of gent. And if you would like to keep up with our podcast, you can find us simply enough at BrewSpeakPod, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Head over to YouTube. We have videos over there. If it's an easier medium for you to listen to this podcast, just search out BREWtally Speaking Podcast. You will find us. There are some videos where we've done them in person. And pins, we still got them. $15 gets them to you anywhere in the U.S. If you are outside of the U.S., let us know. We will figure out something that works to get you these pins. Head on over to On Point Pomade and use our code BSP15 to get 15% off your total order. It is the new year. A lot of people are trying new things, new hairstyles, new hair colors. You got to keep your beard and hair looking good, man. You got to keep it looking on point. Go to onpointpomade.com. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, On Point Pomade. And if you would like some delicious coffee, head over to thebeanbastard.com. Get you some delicious coffee. They actually just came out with a new logo mascot thing. I think he's called the Little Bean or the Little Bee. I don't remember what it is, but it's a very cute little caricature of the skull that is on all of their products. And it is, I'm interested to see what comes of this, because it seems like a lot of fun marketing strategies or avenues are open to them at this point. So head over to thebeanbastard.com. Bastard on Facebook and Instagram. Let them know that we sent you. Buy some of their coffee because it's delicious. I mean, we don't get a cut of it or anything. I just enjoy the product, and you should too. So head on over there and support them. Support all the people that are supporting us. Basically that's how these things grow, is we all support each other. So thanks to On Point Pomade, thanks to Metal Nexus, thanks to the Bean Bastard, and for the Brewtally Speaking podcast, I am John, and we will talk to you next time.